Hi, everybody. This is Bob Gale, co-creator of Back to the Future, and you're listening to Brad Gilmore.
Doc! Okay, relax, Doc. It's me. It's Marty.
Oh, it can't be. Just sent you back to the future.
Oh, I know you did send me back to the future, but I'm back. I'm back from the future.
Great Scott.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
The way I see it, if you're gonna build a time machine into a car, why not do it some
Hello, everybody,
style?
and welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time, the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. I'm your friend in time, Brad Gilmore. Season 10 continues on. We have another great show for you today. Got two special guests joining us. One of them, Frank Janisch, who's been on the show before in some ways, not officially ever a part of this show, but he's been on in the trivia contest that we've had before on the show. He's going to join me today. We're longtime friends and podcasting partners. We're going to talk about Back to the Future. We're going to talk about his favorite. We're going to debate the rankings. We're going to kind of revisit some of the cut scenes from Back to the Future Part 1 that we talked about in Season 2, I believe, of this show, Good Cut, Bad Cut. I haven't seen a lot of these. Some of them since 2015. Some of them I watched in 2019, 2020 when I was writing the book. Nevertheless, it's been some time. And we're going to revisit kind of our Good Cut, Bad Cut of Back to the Future Part 1. Might do the same for 2 and 3. I'm not sure yet. If y'all like it, I might do it again, because the more you spend time with these films, the kind of your mind changes every so often. Like, you start off saying there's no film better than Back to the Future 1, and then you get like me and you're like, man, Back to the Future 3 is my favorite of the trilogy. So stranger things have happened, and I'd like to see what I think of the rest of the cut scenes from 2 and 3 all these years later, and if I still am in agreement with my earlier assessments from Season 2. So we'll see. We're in Season 10. The other person joining me is Brian Gewirtz. Brian Gewirtz, you may have heard his name before if you're a pro wrestling fan or a fan of NBC's Young Rock. He is a head creative writer for $7 Productions, which is Dwayne Johnson's production company, and he was the head writer for the WWE for 16 years. He was on my show with Booker T, the Hall of Fame. We had an hour-long conversation with him, and I was reading his book, and he had a Marty McFly mentioned in the book. He also talked about in 1985 how one person was his biggest idol, and so I threw it on him in the interview of who was his biggest idol, this person or Marty McFly. His answer was funny, and then I actually finished the interview with, after that question, the end of the interview is another couple minutes. He actually brings up a Back to the Future quote in some of his life advice that he would give to prospective writers and people who want to work in the entertainment industry. So I figured I'd throw that in here before we talk to Frank Janisch on the show today. So Brian Gewirtz, again, his book is There's Just One Problem, and I'm still reading it right now. Actually, I'm listening to it. Does that count? If you listen to an audiobook, does that count as reading it? I don't know. But check out Brian Gewirtz and everything that he's doing over at $7 Productions. You could check out Frank Janisch at FrankieJ29. $7 Productions has some new wrestling shows coming out, but Young Rock, if you're a wrestling fan, is a lot of fun. I actually got to meet The Rock when y'all are hearing this like a week ago. It's a crazy moment. I talk about that on the Brad Gilmore Show. So you want to hear the story of me meeting Dwayne Johnson, you can go over to the Brad Gilmore Show podcast feed. Also check out Clue the Movie podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic movie Clue 1 minute at a time if you haven't already. But guess what? Here we are, Season 10. We're past the Paradox script readings. We're back into conversations about the films. And joining me first is Brian Gewirtz. We're going to talk about Marty McFly and his cool factor a little bit. And then after, I'm talking to Frank Janisch about his favorite Back to the Future films. We're actually also going to do some what I call insane Back to the Future trivia. It's actually not that insane, but we'll see how Frank Janisch does. I have 5 questions that I prepared for him at random. We'll see if he can answer them. And y'all play along with me and tell me, tweet me at Brad Gilmore. Let me know how many of the questions you got right. No cheating, no Googling. All right? So without further ado, we're going to kick things off with Brian Gewirtz, former head writer of the WWE, and then we're going to have my conversation with Frank Janisch, formerly of the Schmodown Rundown, right now on Back to the Future, the podcast, Season 10. Let's take it away with Brian Gewirtz. Brian, now this is not related directly to your book, but I have a question because you in 1985 you were 11 years of age, I believe. Is this correct? Around there?
Yeah.
Okay. So in 1985 you were a big Roddy Piper fan, but I just have to know, for you as a kid in 85, who was bigger for you? Was Roddy Piper bigger or was Marty McFly bigger?
Well, I mean, I see you're obviously biased with.
I have a little bit of a bias.
Of course, yeah.
You know, Back to the Future came out that year. I saw it in the theater twice at least. Saw Back to the Future 2 on opening night. Saw Back to the Future 3 on opening night, despite the fact that they basically spoiled Back to the Future 3 with the trailer at the end of Back to the Future 2. It's like, why are you showing Marty with Jennifer on the bench? We know he gets back. Take that shot out. But either way, I mean, I would go to magazine stores and check out Pro Wrestling Illustrated and look at the back, the arena reports that would show, like, you know, all the house show results. And if Roddy wasn't pinned, because I know most of his matches ended in DQ, I'd buy the magazine just because I was happy that he wasn't pinned and, you know, take that home. And if there was like anything, an inside, you know, the most loved, most hated rankings, all of that stuff. If Piper appeared in those rankings, which he often did, that's the excuse I needed to, you know, to buy that magazine, much less WWF magazine. So yeah, I'd give Roddy a little bit of an edge over Marty McFly, even though obviously 11-year-old in 1985 is going to love Marty McFly. Yeah. I mean, I don't cosplay at all, but I did put on the life jacket gimmick and, put on whatever I needed to put on to get a Pepsi Perfect from Back to the Future 2 at New York Comic Con several years ago, which I have in my apartment still. So it's closer than you might think, I guess, would be the answer.
That was a long answer. Hey, man, there's just one problem. What do you want people to take away from the book?
I think, it's a great question, and I don't think it's one I've ever answered before. I mean, I think it's, at the end of the day, you can't judge a book by its cover. I mean, you can judge my book by its cover because it's a delightful cover.
Great cover.
But, at the end of the day, you have the ability to, I know it's very, it's a Back to the Future quote. You set your mind to it, you could accomplish anything. But, you just because you don't fit naturally, you're a square peg in a round hole, or whatever cliche you want to make. You write your own story and you control your own destiny. And, you can have all the things working against you as far as like why you shouldn't be a writer in wrestling, beyond the old school mentality of writers have ruined the business, et cetera, and you've never been in a fight and you blah, blah, blah. If you truly open your mind up to, well, that's what they say, but that's not what I say, and you make it you put your effort. Now I'm quoting Hoosiers. You put your effort into being the absolute best you could be. I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners. It's like you really can't be dictated to by other people. Like when you read these stories, I think you'll see that there was every reason to just throw up your hands, for me to throw up my hands and go, all right, I'm tapping out. I'm not wanted here, or I'm dealing with a boss who is, let's just say, highly unpredictable and causing me to punch holes in my wall and lose sleep. But it's rewarding and I'm enjoying it. And I'm basically writing my own story here, despite what should be happening to me. I'm changing the game for myself. I know it's a very inarticulate, bad answer, but it's really like what I do want to take away is like, you can't be told, you can't map everything out perfectly. You know, that's how I kind of end the book. I wanted to be a sitcom writer like my uncle was. I did do that for a couple of years, but then life, you know, changed directions on me. And what turned out was, I think, better than had I been a sitcom writer in Hollywood for 25 years, because I never would have had these stories to tell, these relationships that I've had and still have to this day. And just this, much less the relationship with rock and everything else in this job. You know, you really just gotta be open to any and all challenges and take them on with gusto.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Brian Gewirtz, right?
Oh, thank you, Booker.
There's just one problem. That was going to be my last question, but I got one more for you. I just got one more before I get you out of here. Yeah, perception, you know, normally it's reality in this world that we live in today, especially, you know, with the social media world having to, you know, want to comment on everything. You got a chance to walk it, live it, breathe it, experience it, that WWE machine. Your takeaway from WWE after 13 years. Give me your thoughts.
My takeaway was, it was wild. It was unpredictable. It was at times extraordinarily frustrating. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't really have changed the experience, because it was super rewarding and satisfying, and something that I love to be a part of. I was definitely not Al Bundy, you know, basically like, oh, I got to sell shoes at this damn mall. Like, it was all said and done. It was like, damn, it's kind of like the bump you allege I never took. Once I felt it, I was like, you know what? This feels amazing. This hurts. And I don't think I should be doing this, but I feel completely invigorated by it. I feel like this was something I was meant to do for one night only. But yeah, as far as WWE is concerned, it was an absolute gamut of emotions, positive and negative. But when I left it, I felt great.
If you had to do it all over again, would you?
Oh, no, not at all.
That's what I was looking for.
No, I'm joking. I would. It was an awesome experience.
Man, I want to thank you for giving me some time, man, promoting the new book. There's just one problem, guys. You got to get it. It's definitely worth the read. And if you want to, get it from, the man who actually walked through it, see it through his eyes, get the book. Do it now. Like I always say, I do it for you. Brian, I appreciate you for stepping inside the Hall of Fame again, getting your champagne wishes and caviar dreams. Any last words?
Well, first of all, Booker, thank you. Thank you for the endorsement. Thank you for the endorsement on the back of the book, which I know I reached out to you and you were more than happy to oblige. I really appreciate that. Thank you for having me on. And I would just say this Friday, season finale of Young Rock. So check it out. It's a hell of a season ender.
Oh, yeah. Bradley, I appreciate you as always for doing all the heavy lifting. Guys, ESPN 975-925, Hall of Fame, as always. Peace. We out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time, the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. As I said at the top of the show, I had a special guest, a guy who I worked with weekly for 5 years, I think.
Something like that.
5 years. You might know him from his time as Frankie Numbers on the Movie Trivia Schmodown. He's also a fixture in Star Wars podcast entertainment, hosting the show Scoundrels, Inc. Do I have it right?
That's correct.
Scoundrels, Inc., which you can find on YouTube and your favorite podcast applications. He is the one and only Frank Janisch, but for old time's sake, he is Frankie Numbers Janisch.
Sexy numbers from a
goodness.
sexy player. Love those numbers. Sexy numbers. I love those numbers. I'm feeling really good about those. I'm feeling those numbers.
Wow, man. I have not heard that in months. And I didn't even think that you would do that when coming on the show when you asked me to. I didn't even think about. I wonder if he'll play the soundbite. Didn't even think of that, and here you are playing the soundbite. Wow, that's brings a tear to my eye.
It brings a tear to your eye, Frank Janisch. Well, welcome to Back to the Future, the podcast. Now, people who've listened to this show, we're in season 10, by the way, and people who've listened to this show, they have heard your voice a couple of times because I've played the trivia contest that we've had in the past.
Oh God!
In the I think we had a Back to the Future match, you and I, 1-on-1, and then we had a 4-way Back to the Future match during the pandemic.
Yeah.
With me, you, Jay Washington, and Kevin Smets. Kevin Smets been on this podcast as well. So anyway, I know you've always been a Back to the Future fan, and I thought this would be a great time to have you on. But first off, man, when we get into this Back to the Future stuff here, as I try to pull up my show notes, which I cannot find at the moment. There it is. Tell me, this is kind of, I think, where we should start. What is your origin story, if you will, with Back to the Future? Like, when do you remember seeing it? When do you remember it coming in your public conscious? Because you are, I would say, a pretty big fan of the films, and always have been, I assume. But when did they enter your world?
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of the films. Watched them ad nauseum growing up, and still do for the most part. I can't really remember though when I saw Back to the Future for the first time because it must have been so young. So it's like it's always just been there in my life, and I do feel like, I do know that like growing up, this part 2 was the one I gravitated towards the most, just because as a young kid you're looking at the future, and that was always interesting to me. But as I got older, I really appreciated part 1, going back to the 50s, 1955, and for the most part, I didn't really dabble a whole lot with part 3 until a little later in my adolescence, I guess. And but yeah, I would, for whatever reason, Michael J. Fox was like that guy that I just could not take my eyes off. I was so enamored with his performance and his comedy that he seemed super relatable to me for whatever reason, I think. Well, I mean, kind of like a little squirmy, a little nerdy, a little unsure of himself at times, So he was relatable in those aspects, especially to me growing up. And yeah, it's always kind of just been there in my life. I can't even remember the first time I saw this movie, which is kind of unfortunate.
Again, I saw it when I was real young, and people know I saw it on the Disney Channel, of all places. But for you said you had a connection to Marty McFly. You weren't sure why. Now, you were an 80s baby, correct?
Yeah.
So you're born mid-80s. Or mid-late
86.
86. So the year after the first movie came out.
Which was kind of cool, too, I was like, oh, right around that's right around my birthday,
Right around your birthday. This movie came out. Now, growing up, you said that you watched these movies ad nauseum. Why were you adverse to part 3?
I don't know. I just felt like I was very interested again, like in the future aspect. I always gravitated towards that aspect, which kind of also explains my love for Star Wars as well. It's very futuristic. It's very otherworldly, almost in a sense. Whereas you could also say that about the Wild West. When you look at that, that's otherworldly compared to today. But as a kid, for whatever reason, I always felt like growing up, Westerns was more of an adult type of medium or genre, and so I didn't really venture too far into watching that as much as I did the other ones. For whatever, I know it seems silly, but that's kind of like growing up. I would always watch, my family, my dad's side of the family, watched a lot of Westerns, and it was kind of like, it was always in black and white, and it was just something that they watched that I thought, oh, this is like an adult thing. And as a kid, I didn't really watch it too much for that reason, I guess. And also, I just didn't have as much access to it as I did the first two, because I actually had those. I never owned the third part until they came out on Blu-ray when I got for the 35th anniversary edition or whatever it was. So I never owned it personally until very later on. And that's also part of the reason why I never watched it as much. But I had the other two.
first of all, it's absolutely insane that you would own not that you would own part 2, but that you would own part 2 without part 3. Because for me over the years, it is if I see part 2, I don't have a choice. I have to watch part 3 immediately because
You're right.
of the way
It is now for me, but growing up, it just didn't, I didn't have a lot of money as a kid where I wanted. And also, I guess I never asked, hey, can I get part 3? Because you're right, I would always watch part 2, and then the credits. You see you see some of the scenes from the third part, and after a while, it's just like, wow, I really want to watch that. But I just never owned it, so I would have to rent it or see it on TV, and that was the only way I actually really saw part 3 for a large part of my childhood.
Wow, only on television. But see, it didn't take you out, because the one thing that if I see Back to the Future now on television, which it still comes on randomly, and what's funny is I've gotten to that. This movie has become so attached to me with people in my life. I mean, like for Christmas, I had people who give me just Back to the Future themed everything, like small DeLoreans, the socks, a shirt that said, whatever you do, don't go back to 2020. Like all those kind of things, right? And my dad will call me no matter what if Back to the Future is on television. He'll pick the phone call, be like, hey, it's on AMC right now. It's on TCM right now. Channel 47 is big. Hey, Dad, I cut the cable like a long time ago. Like I'm a streamer, all right? I'm a streamer. But if I see it on TV, it is hard for me to watch it that way, right? Because it goes into the commercials in very pivotal parts of the movie.
Sure.
It'll be like Marty gets back to 1955, crashes through the barn, and it's like, we'll be right back after this commercial from...
But that's great. That's great formatted for television, if you ask me, because it's like, I gotta wait 2 minutes for a commercial to see...
Well, you know what's weird is I found out certain movies, I don't know if you or the audience knows this because this is something that's new to me. Certain movies, when they're formatted for television, will edit in scenes that were edited out. Have you heard of this before?
I did not. I've thought about the opposite, not what you're talking about.
Sometimes they take stuff out, but there's a video. I wish I remember the guy's name who did it. Someone on YouTube, and if I find it, I'll post it on my Twitter. But there's a guy who did a breakdown of the Goonies, right? And there's a version of the Goonies that you've never seen before, is what this whole thing was about. And he said in the television version of it, they would edit these scenes in that weren't in the movie. I think like Mouth is at some convenience store trying to buy a Playboy or something like that. And, Chunk is there trying to get ice cream or something. But like they would edit in scenes. Now they never did that with Back to the Future, any cut that I've ever seen. But you don't find that interrupts you when you're watching it? And for those of you who hear that, Frank's by an airport.
Yeah, because of the storms, they're actually taking off over the neighborhoods now instead of over the ocean, so you can hear them a lot more. That's why.
Is that true?
100%.
Oh, wait, what?
Because of the way the wind is, because of the storms. It's better for the planes to take off in that direction.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. So,
yeah.
Frank.
Anyways.
We were talking about Back to the Future, not planes, all right? Now,
in part 2, they almost ran into a plane. Or part 1, rather, when they go back to alternate 1985. They almost run into a plane.
Yeah, part 2. It's part 2.
Part 2? Part 2. Oh, yeah.
Come on, Frank.
I was right. I was right the first time.
Now, one thing I want you to do, because, look, people don't know Frank is very well knowledged in all cinema, right?
Well,
in all movies. But I want to ask, so you mentioned, you kind of hinted at it a second ago. If you were to rank these movies, like how would you rank them? Would you rank them, like a lot of people when I ask them this question, they go, oh, I got to rank them in order, 1, 2, 3. But for me, 3 is my favorite. I know, yes. It's been my favorite. It's also Christopher Lloyd's favorite. That's saying something. It's actually saying a big something.
Sure.
That Christopher Lloyd likes that movie the most. It also shows that he's got great taste.
That he does.
But are you a 1, 2, 3 guy? And if you are, you can give me the reasons why. But how do you rank these movies?
Well, it's definitely number 1. The first part is definitely my favorite.
Why?
Of the 3. Because I feel like it is a near perfect film. There's no fat on that movie. There's nothing I would take out. There's nothing I would change about that. There's nothing after I watch that movie and I go, you know what? I wish they would have done this or they would have done that, or why did they do that? I have no problem whatsoever accepting what's on the screen at full value into my eyeballs. I just accept it. I live in it, and I just love that movie. I love the time period, like going back and watching, what it was like in Hill Valley in 1985. I love like that 80s vibe that it still has. I love that they go back to the 1955. I love that time period. I love everything about that movie. There's nothing I would change. And that's not to say I would change stuff in 2 and 3, but it's just in 2, I love the future aspect, and it goes back to for a while, number 2 was my favorite. For a while, it was my favorite because I was like, oh, it's got everything. It's got the future, the past, the quote unquote present. It's got everything. Well, why wouldn't I? It was great. And then number 3, just because part 3, I just haven't seen it as much to really fall in love with that movie the way I do with the first 2. And it's one of those things where the more and more I do watch 3, though, the more and more I do like it. It's just going to take more and more time for me to be like, I don't know, 1, 2, or 3. It's going to change. And that's how it is for Star Wars for me. Like, all those films jumble around the ranking order all the time. And for the most part, Back to the Future hasn't been like that, just for the first 2, not the third part. But the more and more I watch it, the more and more I do like it and appreciate it. It's just one of those time things. So it would go 1, 2, and 3, but 3 is creeping in on 2.
3's creeping in on 2. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, for me, it's like when I look at other trilogies, there aren't a lot of pure trilogies anymore where I say there's been no reboots or sequels or prequels or anything like that. The most one-to-one comparison I can make for Back to the Future, as far as a trilogy goes, I think is Indiana Jones. You have a really, really solid number 1, like.
Oh, more than solid, Brad, but go ahead.
Right, but near perfect, as you put it. Like a near perfect movie. And then for me, Temple of Doom, although it's technically a prequel to the first movie,
right?
It's the second in the series, and I am not a fan of Temple of Doom. But
at all?
It's last, as it stands right now, of the released Indiana Jones movies. I know we're getting Dial of Destiny. At the time we're doing this, it's not out yet, so I can't factor that one in. But Temple of Doom's last for me.
And you know what? It is for me too, but I do appreciate too. It's much more scarier than I remember. Every time I watch it.
Dark movie.
I mean, you're pulling the hearts out of people's chests and you're sacrificing kids, and it's
putting
like...
heart out of people's chests and stuff. It's crazy.
Hey, I may be out of Chicago, but
Chicago ain't out of you.
No, that's right.
But it is. But you know what I love? Not to get on an Indiana Jones tangent, but in Temple of Doom, the opening to me was such a boss call by Steven Spielberg, because he's like, yes, I know with the first Indiana Jones, I gave you this heart-stopping, thrilling, boulder-rolling, booby trap-filled, golden idol-grabbing opening, right? And somebody dies and stuff. And then you know what I'm going to do to follow it up? You know how I'm going to follow it up after I killed Doc Ock in the first one, right? How I follow this one up?
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina, he's been around for a minute. I'm sure somebody just made that connection listening to this podcast, that Alfred Molina is the guy who gets killed at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. But he's like, I'm going to follow that up. I'm going to open with a musical number. And Indiana Jones is going to be in a tux.
And he looks damn good in that white tux.
He does. He looks sensational. Harrison Ford's very, very good-looking guy.
Not to tell me twice.
But I just love how diametrically opposed those two things are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a ballsy call. But after that, and after the Dan Aykroyd cameo, and they get on the plane,
right,
it's over for me after that. I just can't. I can't get into it. I'm going to give it another try, but I can't get into it. And then the third one is this beaming light of happiness.
It is great.
There's not even though there's, I guess, dark elements to it, it's just so fun from beginning to end. You smile throughout you smile throughout the whole movie, and you can't help it. And I feel like that's similar to Back to the Future. Is the first one is like, God, man, you can't think of a better way to start off a franchise or start off a series of movies. Near perfect, all the fat's trimmed off of it. The second one does get way darker than any other movie in the series, because the second one, George McFly's dead. Lorraine is drunk again, but now like a plastic surgery drunk Lorraine.
Yeah, she's like a Real Housewife.
Yeah.
Like, Real Housewife of Hill
thing.
Valley. Like, can you imagine that show?
You know, Biff is running the world. Real dark. It got real dark. And then the third one, again, is just a beaming light of happiness from beginning to end. You're smiling through this Western adventure, and Doc falls in love and has his kiss with Mary Steenburgen, and there's the trains and the horses, and it's just great, man. And Doc's a blacksmith, and he invents the refrigerator.
That's so good. The ice cubes, like it's just, of course he would invent a way using a huge contraption because it's 1885, and it's just like, this he would figure out a way, even though they set up the fact that a lot of the stuff he invents doesn't even work, but he knows how to make an ice cube machine.
I invent something that works. I invent something that works. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, for Back to the Future 1, you mentioned something that I actually want to play to. So you said that there's no fat on the movie. Now, have you ever spent any time with the deleted scenes?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to watch a couple of them with you right now.
Absolutely.
And we can talk, and we did this before on the podcast back in 2016 maybe we did this, or 15, late 15. I think it was late 15. We did good cut, bad cut. But so was this a good cut for the movie, or was it a bad cut for the movie?
Gotcha.
But I will say, and to my Pinhead audience listening right now, I have not seen these scenes probably since I did the book, and even then I realized I wasn't going to spend really any time on these, and so I didn't include them in the book. So it's been at least 4 years, maybe some of these since 2015, so 8 years since I've seen these scenes, which sounds nuts that I've been doing this podcast that long. But let's watch this one. This is from Back to the Future Part 1. The first scene, Frank Janisch, peanut brittle. Let's hear it.
Did it ever occur to you to say no? I mean, just once, say no. Look, son, I know it's hard for you to understand, but the fact is, I'm not a fighter. Try it once, okay? For me. Just say no. N-O, no.
Hey, McFly, my kid here's selling peanut brittle for a team. It's $5 a box. I put you down for a case, okay?
Okay.
Great. It's out in the car. I'll go get it. See, honey, I told you, we'd only have to go to one house.
Okay. Now, you know what? That's a fun scene. Definitely not needed.
Absolutely correct. Not needed. They demonstrate that in what's that? In the when they leave in the movie, like, just not very good at confrontation. Like, it's all set up there. It's the Biff, and the light beer. Like, it's all right there.
But for people listening to this, I'm sure y'all have seen this scene before, heard of it. But again, where they cut this out, the next thing you see in the movie is actually George pouring the peanut brittle into a bowl at the family table, and Marty kind of staring at it like, why is he eating this peanut brittle? And again, so I mean, in case you're ever wondering what his look meant, it's because
it's so funny too, because when you have that much peanut brittle, you're just, even if you don't have this scene, this deleted scene, and all that peanut brittle just kind of adds to the character of George. Like, yeah, George McFly would have all of this peanut brittle for who knows what reason, because he's the complete opposite of Marty,
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a good cut. They didn't need it, but I do like seeing it. I do like seeing it. So this next scene is called Pinch Me. Let's see this one, Frank Janisch. What is this one about?
This has got to be a dream. Well, excuse me. Pardon me. Could you pinch me?
I beg your
Yeah,
pardon.
pinch me.
Shame on you.
Yeah, that'll do. Thanks a lot. This is definitely not a dream.
Okay, so Marty gets slapped across the face by a woman of a certain age in the 50s. I don't think they needed it.
No, it's a good cut because we know it's not a dream. That's all we need to know, and it's fun for us for him to keep figuring out, is this a dream or not? It's more fun, but for him to automatically realize it's not a dream kind of takes that out. So by taking out that scene, it elongates that process of him trying to figure, is this a dream? With him looking at everything,
Right, and seeing the Mr. Sandman playing and the whole nine and going into lose there in a moment. So okay, so this next one's called Doc's Personal Belongings. See what we got here.
Doc, do you have a 75 ohm matching transformer? What? Not invented yet. Right. I knew it.
So, these are my personal belongings, huh?
Yeah.
What's this thing?
It's a hairdryer.
A hairdryer? Don't they have towels in the future? Look at these underpants. They're all made of cotton. I thought for sure we'd all be wearing disposable paper garments by 1985. What's this?
Is it a Playboy?
Yeah.
Ooh, suddenly the future is looking a whole lot better.
All right, okay, Doc, it's ready. Come here.
Okay, so that's right when they're about to play Marty talking to him. They're going to play the footage from the Twin Pine Mall parking lot scene in the beginning of the movie. A good cut.
I think
it was a little slow in the beginning.
I think if aside from I don't think you need the Playboy part in there.
Yeah, I agree.
But if you left everything else aside from that Playboy part, I think it could work. You're right, it probably does slow it down just a little bit, and I think they wanted the pacing. I think it might have been a pacing thing at that point in the movie. I don't know, I would have to see it inserted and then remove it and see how it plays, but for the most part, I do like going back to the gag of, I wonder if who knows if they have synthetic underwear that kind of like plays, into him going through his suitcase and the cotton underwear and all that.
Yeah, now the Playboy thing, I didn't think that they needed, because I kind of like how Doc isn't infatuated with women at all until in 1885.
That's a very good point.
He's all about the science.
Yeah.
Until boom, he's struck by lightning. Marty, don't say that.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Okay, so this next one is called "She's Cheating." Yeah, I haven't seen these scenes since probably 2015, so these almost feel new to me.
Yeah.
Whoa! They really cleaned this place up. Looks brand new.
Now remember, according to my theory, you interfered with your parents' first meeting. If they don't meet, they won't fall in love, they won't get married, and they won't have kids. That's why your older brother's disappearing from that photograph. Your sister will follow, and unless you repair the damage, you'll be next.
Sounds pretty heavy.
Well, it has nothing to do with it.
Hey, Doc. Doc, there she is. Right there, second row.
Oh, yeah. I see the resemblance.
Holy shit. She's cheating.
Well,
She's my mom.
I got an F anyway.
which one's your pop?
That's him.
Okay, interesting way they edited that, because the beginning of the scene is in the movie, and then the end of the scene's in the movie, but this little middle chunk isn't. Yeah, this scene, actually watching it, made me not like Lorraine.
Yeah, I think also we don't need to know she's this rule breaker this early. Like, we kind of get a little bit of hint of, and he can stay in my room, and then I think it kind of cheapens the I swiped it from the old lady's liquor cabinet moment. I think because it's like, I guess Lorraine was kind of a rebel, if you will, in those times. So yeah, I don't think you really needed that. Yeah.
No, you didn't need it. And then for her to be like, I got an F anyway. I'm like, okay, we've established that you're a bit of a horn dog, and now you're like stupid too. It's like you're really screwing this high school thing up here. But 85, Leah Thompson, I mean, just gorgeous. Beautiful. Beautiful woman. I mean, come on now. Dreamboat. Okay, this next one. Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, deleted scenes. Let's see this.
Mom! Dad! Silence! My heat ray will vaporize you if you do not obey me!
Okay, I surrender.
You, George McFly, have created a rift in the space-time continuum!
I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
Sorry doesn't cut it, George. The Supreme Klingon hereby commands you to take the female unit known as Baines Lorraine to the place called Hill Valley High School, exactly 4 Earth cycles from now. That's this Saturday night, George.
You mean you want me to take Lorraine to the dance?
Affirmative.
I don't know if I can do that. Okay, all right, I'll do it. I'll take Lorraine to the dance, just please.
Now close your eyes and see me no more.
Okay. Affirmative.
In the world?
Chloroform.
How'd it go?
Great. Well, that chloroform really put him out. Hope I didn't overdo it.
Oh, man.
I have mixed opinions on that one. I have mixed feelings.
I think it's too long.
Yeah.
And more is less. And you're gonna hear George basically retell that conversation later. So it's kind of double dipping. So I can see why they cut that for sure.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, the seeing him chloroform him, weird.
Yeah, it's not like,
it's a little weird.
It is. I mean, there's enough weird stuff in here to begin with. You don't need to be drugging, or not drugging, but chloroforming your dad.
Oh
my gosh.
We talked about how this is a near perfect movie, and I had a segment that we were going to do later, but I'm going to jump to it because I still want to finish watching these scenes. But I said I was gonna have a jumping gigawatt hot take, for the show, and I didn't know exact. I had a few ideas of where I was gonna go with it, but after seeing the Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan part of this movie, I understand why it's needed. I understand how it even gives George the inspiration to write his novel. Oh, look, George, your first novel. But I kind of think that if I were to take anything out of the movie, I would like to maybe have seen them do it a different way. Convince George a different way. But maybe there wasn't another way to convince him. I'm talking through this like in real time.
Well, because it plays into Mystery Science Theater. So that's why this scene is funny, because he would totally buy it because he loves that show.
Right.
So I think that's why this scene works and why it's so impactful on George.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I guess just seeing it, you know what it was? Seeing this long form version of it showed me really how silly of a concept it is. And like,
Yeah.
like here's the thing. If I were to pitch the screenplay to you, I'm pitching you in the room and you're the producer, and you say, okay, well, how do they convince George? How do they convince him to go to the dance? And I say, oh, we're going to put on the radiation suit. He's going to think that we're an alien because we play him electric guitar. And I'm going to say I'm Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan. And that's going to change his mind. It almost sounds like a little like wait, you're going to do what? Pretend you're an alien? But it obviously it works in the movie. But had they done the long version of it, I don't think it would have played.
Yeah, and I think when George goes to talk to Marty later on when they're doing the laundry, he's telling you, though, what we didn't see. Basically.
Right.
And so that's why I think you all can also cut parts of that or make the longer version, the shorter version that you see in the movie. Yeah.
And then doesn't George, though, say, I overslept? You weren't at school today,
That's
Dad.
right. I overslept. Yeah.
Because of the chloroform.
And because it was the chloroform, but also just because you could also just chalk it up, well, he got woken up in the middle of the night and... He was overslept
freaked out.
Because, yeah, he's freaked out.
Okay, this next scene is called Hit Me, George.
All right, tell you what, George. Give me a shot. Right here. Give me your best shot.
No, I'm
right
not going to hit you in the
Come on, George.
stomach.
Come on, right here.
Crispin Glover is so good.
There. That was good. She'll believe that. I know she will. I'm fine.
Tell you what, George.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, they could have maybe left that in.
I think they could have left that in.
Yeah.
I think they could have left that in and it would have been fine. I don't dislike that it's not in the movie, but I think they could have left it in.
Yeah, I mean, it shows George, again, his unwillingness to commit to this role that I guess that he's being thrusted on. This is when Marty's trying to convince him, or not convince him, but this is how we're going to get Lorraine to go to the dance. I mean, because I'm gonna take advantage of her and you're gonna hit me and blah blah blah. And he just goes, okay, boom, and he gives him like the biggest little love tap, and it's like that's great, she'll believe it. Crispin Glover so good in this movie.
He is amazing. He's really good. Yes.
I mean, I don't think he ever did a role like this to where he just kills it on all levels. Like he's good. He's actually normally good in everything I see him in. But he's become a little bit like Crispin Glovery. Do you know what I mean? Like in movies?
Yeah, totally.
Like even in the Charlie's Angels movies.
I was going to say Charlie's Angels.
Like he's kind of Crispin Glovery in those movies, which is akin to George McFly. But shout out to the great Crispin Glover. Here is the next one. Got a Permit.
Aha. You aren't going to set anything on fire this time, are you, Doc?
Hey, kid, you better pick up your mom and get going.
Yeah, right.
You look a little pale. Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't know, Doc. I mean, it's just this whole thing with my mother.
What?
I just don't know if I can go through with it. Hitting on her.
Nobody said anything about hitting her. You're just gonna take a few liberties with her.
Oh my God.
See, that's what I mean. I mean, God, I can't believe I'm actually gonna feel up my own mother. This is the kind of thing that could screw me up permanently. Well, what if I go back to the future and I end up being gay?
Why shouldn't you be happy?
I gotta go pick up my mother.
Good.
Listen, if things don't work out at the dance tonight and my folks don't get back together, when do you think I'll start to fade out?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I think good. Mostly good. I mean, really, what this set up more than anything was Marty's just trepidation about, getting busy with his mother a little bit.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you need any more setup for that. I think that we understand that anybody would feel weird in that position. And the other part of it was just more comedy of playing off like what's different in 85 and 55, mainly with the verbiage of gay back in the 50s really just meaning happy and not anything to do with, what we think of as being gay. And then, hitting on my mom. No one said anything about hitting her. You're just going to take a few liberties with her.
It is a funny line, though. I'm not going to lie.
It is a funny line. But, I mean, it's almost callback to where, Marty's like, man, this heavy doc. And he's like, weight's got nothing to do with it.
Right. How many times do you want to go back to that well, And I think once is enough. And, yeah, well, you're right. You don't need to set up the fact that he's awkward about hitting on his mom because you're ready to get that in the scene when he's talking to George. It's not as overt, obviously, but you can sense, when he says, nice girls don't like it when, they're taken advantage of or whatever the line is. You can sense his uneasiness about it already. So you don't need to, again, set it up that he's feeling this particular way about the plan.
Agreed. Okay, so this next one's called Phone Booth. It's George running into a phone booth for our listeners.
Operator, can you give me the time? Those no good guys, they just locked me in.
Do you see what happens to slackers, McFly?
Yes! Mr. Strickland, you gotta let me out of here!
I know exactly why they took that out.
Why is that?
It ruins the tension of when's George going to show up.
Right.
It's like, now we know he's going to be late. He's not going to be there on time. And when you're watching this scene now with Biff, or Marty and then Biff, it's like, well, when's he going to show up? Because when he gets pulled out of the car, you might think it's George, just like Marty does. But it's Biff. And if we see that scene before, then we know it's not George.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is a great cut. And it kind of makes Strickland, I mean, we already don't like him, but it makes him look like he's not about authority because you leave a student locked in a phone booth.
That too. Yeah.
Why would you do that? Not a good look, bro. You're going to get suspended or something. That couldn't go down. Maybe in the 50s it was okay. In the 50s, they still had corporal punishment. Yeah, they did. Yeah, right? They could still hit you.
I'm sure they could.
I'm pretty sure. My folks, my mom was born in the 50s, but I remember she saying that, she had a teacher who, if you talked out of school, you'd have to put your hands on the desk and they'd swat them with a ruler.
My mom came up in the convent when the nuns could whack you with the rulers and all that stuff. And that was in the early 70s.
That's so crazy.
Late 60s, early 70s, yeah.
I had a substitute teacher at Edgar Allan Poe Elementary School named Mr. Thompson who used to threaten to beat us with a paddle. But we knew that he wasn't going to do it. But but he'd always say, I could go get that paddle. And I'm like, yo, man, I don't know what you were referring to, but that sounds a little scary. So this next one says an extended scene for Johnny Be Good. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit through it. There we go. All right, here we go.
Way down in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good, who never ever learned to read or write so well. He could play a guitar just like he's ringing a bell. Go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, go, go.
Seems like a lot more
Solo?
yeah, a lot just interspersing shots of his performance more than anything. This is a great scene, though.
It's so fun, yeah. But you know what? Their kids are gonna love it.
Yeah.
Strictly with his hands over his head.
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
Hey, what do you call that? It's rock and roll.
Okay, so boom, it was him naming rock and roll.
Rock and roll, yeah.
Because of course they wanted him to invent it in the movie, and that's him inventing rock and roll, just like he invented skateboarding. Marty McFly, great guy, hell of a guy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Out of all those scenes we just watched from Back to the Future Part 1, I think we only said one of them we would put in the movie, and that was George pretending to punch Marty.
Yeah.
And that's pretty damn good track record.
Again, there's no fat on this movie. Even like they knew what they needed to take out and what wasn't needed, and they made a near flawless movie, if you ask me.
Phenomenal. Well, Frank Janisch, we're coming to a close here, but before we wrap up, okay, I wanted to do, because your first two appearances on this show were technically your first two appearances were trivia related.
Oh no!
I decided to put together 5 trivia questions.
This is not good.
From Back to the Future, just to see if you could guess any of them. Now you told me in a sec before we started rolling, you had some sort of reason why you don't feel confident.
I have not watched a Back to the Future movie in I think like 2 years.
Woo! Whoa! Okay.
And it was a conscious effort because to take a break from them, because I was watching them so much, I was like, I need to take a break and A, watch other things, and B, I want to revisit it after a long period of time just to kind of potentially recapture the magic of
yes, I
watching
understand
it after
that.
a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had been thinking about, I need to rewatch Back to the Future soon, like a couple weeks ago I thought about this. And then I see in the rundown when you sent in the email, the trivia, I was like, of course. Of course, I used to watch these movies all the time. And now I'm in this elongated break. Of course, some trivia is going to come up. But I'm willing, I'm kind of curious to see how I might do. Just what do I remember?
Okay, so I just put together, literally, these are the first 5 questions that came to my mind. I didn't do any planning for this, really. These are the first 5 questions that came to my mind. If you do not know them, Frank, it is okay, but you will be a slacker in my book. Okay?
What else is new?
So, Frank Janisch. And you know what? There's 5 questions, so a passing score technically would be 4 of 5. 3 of 5 would be a 60. So I guess that's a D. So that would be passing.
Yeah.
All right, Frank Janisch, your first question. In Back to the Future 1, how much time does Marty give himself to go back to save Doc in 1985?
Oh my God. I can hear the line. I'm like, that'll be enough time. 10 minutes?
Oh, mamacita.
10 minutes is correct. 10 minutes is correct. 10 minutes ought to do it. Which always bothered me because I'm like, bro, you're only giving yourself 10 minutes?
Yeah, 100%. Same.
Give yourself an hour. I can't even get to the end of my block in 10 minutes. Okay, here we go. Second question, Back to the Future Part 1. In the Twin Pines Mall scene, Doc is seen with a notepad on his belt loop in the parking lot of the Hill Valley Mall. what was on, or what movie franchise was represented on that notepad?
Whoa. I don't think I've ever picked up this detail, but if I'm going to guess, maybe Planet of the Apes? I don't know.
Planet of the Apes? Is that what you said? You said Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
Give us some Roni, brother. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, that is wrong.
Yeah, I knew. What was it?
So the answer, I'm about to show it to you here, Frank, so you can see it. And for those playing at home, I'm giving y'all a couple extra seconds to do this. So Frank Janisch, this is the correct answer. The correct answer, that is the wrong slide. The correct answer is Gremlins.
Oh, wow.
Gremlins. So
I don't
show
think that's
you
a detail I've ever known, to be honest.
So here it is. On Doc's belt, he has this notepad from the Gremlins.
Wow. You know what? I don't even feel bad about missing this one because this is one I would never have known. I don't even feel bad about this one. That's great, though. I love this.
That is a great little thing that we find out more about Back to the Future. But that is from Doc. He's wearing it right there. Gremlins notepad.
Yes. I never noticed this. Holy crap.
Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. Okay, we're going to continue. Your next one. What is the name of the motel located in 1955 Hill Valley?
Oh, no. See, if I had watched this movie as much as I normally did, I'd know this. I know this, and I don't.
It's named, I'll give you a hint. It's named after an animal.
And it's motel?
Yes.
Named after, I don't know, Moose? The Moose Motel?
It is the Hill Valley Bluebird Hotel.
Bluebird, okay.
Bluebird Hotel.
A forest animal still, I got it.
Yes, okay. And then here's question number 4. These last two are a little specific, so let's see if you get these.
Oh, boy.
In Back to the Future Part 2, while Marty is in the Cafe 80s, he runs into a young actor who would later play the role of Frodo, Elijah Wood. What color hat was Elijah Wood wearing?
Oh, Brad. Again, if I had been watching these movies the way I do, I would have nailed this one. I'm going to go yellow.
It's green. It's green.
Oh, no!
His suspenders were yellow.
Oh, my God. I knew it was something yellow.
His hat was green.
Yeah.
Okay. Now your final one, we're going to keep in the realm of colors.
Oh, great.
In Lorraine Baines' bedroom in 1955, she remarks that Marty has purple underwear. However, what color shirt was Lorraine wearing?
Shirt?
What color did she have on?
I think it's like a lighter color.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to... Like, is it like a light pink or a white? I'm just going to say white, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, white?
It is white and purple. So
white and purple?
I think I'm going to give you that. Look at that. Frank Janisch, for that, you get the tenderoni treatment.
Hey.
And if you find the tenderoni that is right for you.
Hey,
All right. Well, Frank, look, thanks for coming on Back to the Future, the podcast, season 10. We've been kicking it for an hour about the movie, so I think that's time to wrap. Do you have any final words about Back to the Future? Anything you want to share with the pinheads?
I just really need to rewatch these movies ASAP. Now I'm gonna do that probably this weekend. Watch these, all 3 of them, and it's been doing this has now convinced me it's been far too long that I haven't seen these movies, because I really do love them. I love the adventure that they put you on, and the time travel. They just do time travel so well, like no one else does.
They do it the best.
It is the best. And,
they do it the best.
Even though Endgame kind of ripped it off, which I'm okay with, more or less, whatever. But you know what? The OGs are Back to the Future, and the Bobs did it right. And man, it's such a good time. So I'm glad that you had me on here. I appreciate it. And now I'm gonna go rewatch them.
You got to. Well, Frank Janisch, thanks for joining us on the show. This is Back to the Future, the podcast, the only podcast looking back in time with the greatest film trilogy of all time, Back to the Future. I'm your friend in time, Brad Gilmore, and we will see you in the future.